The sound of paper smacking the pavement still rings in my head. You know what I mean? I swung open my front door that morning, and there it was in me mail, my bills, even a package I've been waiting on for months, all flung across the sidewalk like somebody threw a parade in my honor and forgot to tell me. And standing there real bows deep in my mailbox, fingers twitching like she was digging for buried treasure, was Karen, our HOA president. Queen Karen, clipboard always in hand, the one who fined folks for a faded shutter or a dandelion peeking up between cracks, acting like she was guarding Buckingham Palace. Only this time, she wasn't wagging a finger about my trash bins or the color of my trim. No, she was rifling through my private mail like it was her God-given right. She saw me, cocked her head, and grinned with that mean little smirk of hers. "You don't deserve this address," she said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "This neighborhood doesn't need your kind bringing in government handouts and clutter." I swear, for a second, I couldn't breathe. My kind? She didn't just mean me. She meant every veteran, every neighbor who didn't fit her perfect picture. That package on the ground me VA disability paperwork, months of waiting and pain and red tape, tossed aside like a pizza flyer. My blood boiled. I stomped down the steps, combat boots thudding hard, the sound echoing off driveways. Step away from my mailbox. I growled, and I meant it. But Karen didn't budge. She just puffed herself up, all righteous, wagging her finger. "This is HOA property," she barked, waving her arm like a gavel. "Mailboxes belong to the association. If you don't like it, maybe you'd be happier back in base housing." I almost laughed, but it wasn't funny. Everybody with half a brain knows mailboxes are federal property, and tampering with mail is a felony, not some neighborhood infraction. But Karen? She was tearing through my rights like they were coupons, and I'd had enough. I pulled out my phone, thumb shaking but determined, and hit record. Karen kept going, flicking through my letters, trash-talking veterans, talking to the world like she was still the queen. Except now, neighbors were on their porches, phones in hand, recording every second. She saw the cameras too late. She dropped the mail like it burned her. "You can't film me. This is harassment." Her voice cracked, and right then, blue lights flashed at the end of the street, deputies rolling up, called by the very neighbors she'd bullied for years. The officers stepped out, eyes hard, taking in the scattered mail, the open box, the wall of phones pointed at Karen. I locked eyes with the taller deputy. "She's tampering with my mail," I said, steady as I could. "Federal offense. I want her charged." Then came the twist. I never saw it coming. One of the deputies, Daniels, had served with me years ago. He recognized me, clapped my shoulder, and turned on Karen with a stare colder than January. "Ma'am," he said, and you could hear the steel in his voice, "you just made the biggest mistake of your life." Karen started babbling, swearing she was just protecting the neighborhood from suspicious packages. Daniels just shook his head and read her the law right there on the curb. Tampering with mail, federal crime, punishable by prison. The crowd gasped. Karen's face went from red to white to something like gray as she realized this wasn't going to be another HOA slap on the wrist. I bent to pick up my envelope, the one with the VA seal, still smudged with dirt, me hands steady for the first time all morning. The truth was out, and everyone saw it. The deputies cuffed Karen as she screeched and cursed. Neighbors filmed, some laughed, a few even clapped. Years of fines and threats gone in an instant, replaced by the image of their bully, wristbound, being loaded into the back of a cruiser. I'll tell you, it wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. But you know what? That was just the beginning. Even after the cruiser disappeared, her voice still echoed through the cul-de-sac like a bad smell. Folks didn't scurry back inside. They stood around, talking in hushed voices, reliving what they'd just seen. The next week, Karen's mugshot was on the front page of the local paper. HOA president arrested for mail tampering. It mentioned me by name, my veteran status, the VA paperwork. Neighbors who used to avoid eye contact at the mailbox were suddenly dropping by, shaking my hand, thanking me for standing up. When her court date rolled around, the courthouse was packed more people than I'd ever seen at an HOA meeting. Karen looked small, wrinkled suit, wrists still red from the cuffs, but she tried to sneer, to hold onto a shred of the old arrogance. Her lawyer parroted the same line, community safety. The judge wasn't buying it. He raised an eyebrow and said, "Since when does community safety involve opening a veteran's disability paperwork?" The courtroom snickered. Karen shrunk even further. I got up on the stand, no grandstanding, just the plain truth. I talked about Afghanistan, the injuries, the months waiting for that envelope. How it felt to have a neighbor, someone who never sacrificed a thing, treat my service, my pain, like garbage. My voice cracked once, and I didn't care. The truth hit harder than any argument. Then, right when everyone thought it was over, the prosecutor dropped the bomb security footage from the post office. Karen, weeks before, sneaking in, digging through outgoing bins, opening other people's mail. Checks, packages, Christmas cards gone. The whole room gasped. A mom in the back started crying, realizing that's why her kid's birthday card from grandma never showed up. Karen exploded, screaming about conspiracies and setups, but the judge wasn't having it. "Sit down, ma'am," he barked. And just like that, the queen was dethroned. Verdict: guilty. Mail tampering, harassment, misuse of authority, fraud. 1 year county jail, 5 years probation, restitution to every single victim. The gavel hit, and the whole room just breathed. Years of intimidation gone in that single second. People hugged. Some cried. For the first time in forever, the neighborhood felt lighter. Afterwards, people came to my fence, casseroles, handshakes, even a few apologies for not speaking up sooner. "You didn't just fight for yourself," a neighbor said. "You fought for all of us." And maybe he was right, because this was never about just an envelope. It was about dignity, about drawing the line, about proving that not even a petty tyrant in a golf cart can stand above the law. Sarah hung a handmade sign on our gate. "My mail, my right." Simple words, but every kid who passed asked about it. And I always told them, it means no one gets to take what's yours. Not your toys, not your rights, not your future. Life slowly got back to normal. The HOA changed hands, this time honest. Fines faded. Neighborhood cookouts came back. Even Daisy, my dog, slept soundly on the porch again, like none of it ever happened. So let me ask you, did I do the right thing, standing up, dragging it all out in the open, or should I have handled it another way? Drop your thoughts below. Tell me about justice, about community, about standing up when it counts. I want to hear your stories, because at the end of the day, it's not just about fighting back, it's about knowing when enough is enough and deciding together what kind of neighborhood we want to live in. That you'd think that after Karen went down, the neighborhood would just fix itself. You know? Like all the drama would drain away with her screaming down the street in a cop car, and everyone would go back to barbecues and Sunday football. But if I've learned anything, it's that even when the big bully is gone, the mess she left behind doesn't just disappear. The first weeks were awkward. At first, folks would stop by to thank me, or to shake my hand and mumble something about doing what nobody else dared. But under that gratitude, you could feel the tension, like people were waiting for the other shoe to drop. The new HOA board stepped in quick, promising transparency and community input. They even set up a big town hall right in the old recreation center. And for once, the place was packed. There were faces I'd never seen before, people who'd kept their heads down for years suddenly speaking up, arguing over old fines, pointing fingers at each other, sometimes at me, for making things public and dragging our dirty laundry into the open. Some folks even muttered that maybe Karen had the right idea, just the wrong methods. That's the kind of thing that keeps you up at night. I started wondering if I'd actually made life better, or just ripped off the Band-Aid and left the wound raw for everyone to see. Let me back up a sec, because it wasn't all tension and hushed voices. There were good things, too. The new board got rid of the most ridiculous rules. No more citations for a garden gnome, or a mailbox painted the wrong shade of beige. Kids actually played in the street again. Sarah joined a neighborhood gardening club, and we even hosted a block party with music, burgers, and get fees a bounce house paid for by the HOA budget, not by another fine. But just when it seemed like things were settling, the next twist hit. A letter showed up in my mailbox, no return address, just a plain envelope tucked between bills. Inside was a photocopy of an old property map with a handwritten note. Asked the board about Lot 17. Some things didn't change with Karen gone. At first, I laughed it off, probably some leftover drama. But that night, I found a rock thrown through our window. Not a big one, just enough to crack the glass. And taped to it, another note. Keep quiet if you know what's good for you. Now, I don't scare easy, but I'd be lying if I said my hands didn't shake picking up that rock. Suddenly, every shadow felt heavier, every silence louder. Sarah wanted to call the police, but I told her to hold off. I wanted to figure out what the hell Lot 17 was about before dragging in more uniforms. I started asking around quietly. Turns out, Lot 17 was this patch of wooded land behind the tennis courts land the HOA claimed belonged to the community, but rumor had it Karen had been managing on the side, collecting off the books rent from a landscaper who stored his equipment there. Some neighbors thought there might be more missing funds, maybe, or even a deal to sell the land out from under us. The more I dug, the more nervous people got. One night, Daniels, the same deputy who'd helped nail Karen, stopped by my porch off duty. "I know you think this is all over," he said, sipping his coffee, "but corruption's like weeds. Pull one, two more pop up. Just watch your back." The next HOA meeting turned into a circus. I brought the map and the letters, laid it all out in front of the board and the whole neighborhood. There was shouting, accusations flying. A couple of folks walked out, swearing they were done with community drama. The board promised a full audit. They even invited the county to look at the books, which, if you know anything about HOA pride, is like letting the IRS move into your guest room. But here's the thing: people started to talk. Not just whisper, but really talk. About the old days, about what needed to change, about how easy it is to let one loud person run the show if nobody else stands up. Some neighbors apologized for being silent, others for siding with Karen because it was just easier. Little by little, that fear started to lose its grip. We never did find out who sent the letters. The county audit uncovered a mess: missing funds, fake invoices, a maintenance company that turned out to be Karen's cousin's side hustle. No one wanted to go to court again, but the new board pushed for restitution and actually got some of the money back for the community. Lot 17? The board voted to turn it into a playground, a real one, with swings and slides and a plaque that said, "For every neighbor who stood up." Things aren't perfect, and maybe they never will be. There's still folks who wish the whole thing had stayed quiet, that we could have just painted over the cracks instead of tearing up the floorboards. But I see more kids outside now, more neighbors waving instead of just nodding, and Sarah's garden is the pride of the block. Even Daisy seems happier. She sleeps right by the front door, guarding our mail like a four-legged Secret Service. So here's my question for you. Now that you've heard the rest, do you think it worth it? Stirring the pot, digging up secrets, risking being that neighbor just to make things right? Or does a community work best when we just let things slide? I want to hear from you. Drop a comment, tell your own HOA stories, or just let me know where you stand on standing up. Because sometimes the fight's not just about mail or fines or even justice. Sometimes it's about deciding what kind of neighbors we want to be and what kind of place we want to call home.